The knock came just after sunset, 3 sharp hits that made my stomach drop. I froze halfway to the door, heart pounding, the echo of rain against the window growing heavier, like the sky itself was warning me. When I opened it, my father stood there, soaked to the bone, his voice flat as thunder. "You're alone, Maya. No husband, no children. We're taking this house." Behind him, my brother smirked, and my mother clutched a box labeled Master Bedroom. For a second, I just stared at the family who once threw me out into a storm when I was jobless, now standing in mine, claiming what I'd built. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just reached for my phone. None of them ever saw what came next. My name is Maya Thompson, 32 years old, born and raised in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio. The kind of neighborhood where everyone waves but nobody really sees you. My father, Thomas, ran an insurance branch, a man who worshipped control, order, and rules. My mother, Linda, an accountant obsessed with appearances, fresh flowers on the counter, matching Christmas pajamas, perfectly curated love. And then there was Jason, my brother, 3 years older, the family's golden boy, the reason my parents smiled for photos. I was the quiet one. The dreamer with ink-stained hands and an old Dell laptop where I built pretend websites no one ever saw. While Jason went on beach trips, I stocked shelves at Target, saving every dollar in a coffee tin marked college fund. I thought they'd be proud. Every Sunday we had roast chicken, green beans, and Dad's sermons about success. I still remember the night I told them I wanted to study web design. Dad's fork stopped midair. "That's not a real career, Maya." My mother laughed softly. "Sweetheart, people like you end up freelancing forever." "Study finance," Jason smirked. "Better hope Target needs a website." Their laughter filled the room, warm, cruel. I smiled, pretending it didn't sting, but my hands trembled under the table. At 18, when Jason got a brand new Ford Fusion for his birthday, I got a card with $50. "Get yourself something useful," Dad had written. I used it to buy a used textbook for my first design class. The next few years nearly broke me. Double shifts at a diner, nights spent coding until sunrise, my tiny apartment smelling like burnt coffee and fryer oil. No one called to ask if I was okay. No one but Grandma Dorothy. She lived across the state line, a widow who built her house brick by brick after Grandpa died. Every Sunday she called. "You've got your grandfather's patience," she'd tell me. "Don't let them shrink you, honey." During summers, while my parents and Jason vacationed in Cancun, I helped her in the garden, fixed her old computer, painted her fence. She was the first person who ever said independence wasn't loneliness. It was freedom. When I graduated at 22, I stood outside the registrar's office with my diploma in a plastic sleeve. No ceremony, no family cheering. That same week, I got a junior designer job at a small agency downtown. The pay was barely enough to survive, but it was mine. I sent my parents a card that said, "I got the job," and a photo of my little desk, secondhand but glowing under a cheap lamp. They never replied. Years later, I realized that was the night I truly left home. Not when I moved out, but when I stopped waiting for them to see me. Jason, of course, was still the family's headline. Every holiday, every phone call, every photo, it was always about him. When I got promoted, I called home to share the news. My mother barely listened. "That's nice, dear. Jason just got accepted into an MBA program." It didn't matter how hard I worked. I was invisible. I kept trying anyway, helping them file taxes, sending gifts, driving 3 hours when their Wi-Fi broke, anything to matter. But Mom just said, "Jason would have fixed it faster." Then came the year everything fell apart. The agency went bankrupt overnight. Doors locked, phones silent, paychecks bounced. I told myself I'd recover, but weeks slipped into months. Rent came due. My roommate moved out. The apartment became an echo. The night before eviction, surrounded by boxes, I broke my own promise. I called home. "Dad," I said, voice shaking. I lost my job. "I just need a small loan. I'll pay it back," he sighed. "Actions have consequences, Maya. You chose a field with no future." "Please," I whispered. Just until next month, Mom's voice cut in sharp from the background. We can't help you. We're paying for Jason's MBA. You need to learn responsibility. Then the line went dead. Rain started outside, soft, then harder. I drove to their house anyway. When Dad opened the door, the porch light hit his face. Please, I said. Just for a few weeks. No, he said, calm as ever. You made your choices. Live with them. Mom appeared behind him. This isn't a good time, Maya. Then the door shut. I stood there, rain soaking through my coat, my bag clutched tight. My breath came out in white clouds, but I didn't move. That was the last night I ever called them family. I spent the next week living out of my car behind a Walmart, sleeping under an old blanket while delivery trucks hummed through the night. I showered at a gym using a day pass and charged my phone at coffee shops. I told myself it was temporary, but every rejection email made the silence louder. Then one afternoon at Starbucks, I heard a voice. Maya? Carla, an old high school friend. She looked at me, eyes softening as she took in everything I was trying to hide. Are you okay? I tried to answer, but tears came first. She didn't ask again. She just said, come with me. That night, in her spare bedroom, under real sheets and warm air, I finally slept. The next morning, Carla made calls, one to her boyfriend, who ran a small design studio. His name was David. He looked through my portfolio, then said, You've got an eye for detail. Start Monday. That was the moment everything began to shift. The first time I stepped into David's studio, the air smelled like coffee and printer ink, the scent of second chances. I worked quietly, took every task seriously, stayed late when no one asked me to. After months of feeling invisible, I finally felt useful again. 2 weeks in, David called me into his office. You're good at this, he said, smiling. Let's bump your pay. For the first time in months, I exhaled without guilt. Then the phone rang. Is this Maya Thompson? A woman's voice asked. I'm Margaret, Dorothy's neighbor. Your grandmother's in the hospital. It's serious, the world narrowed. Grandma, my only real family, had pneumonia. Carla drove me 3 hours to the hospital. When I walked into the room, Grandma looked small beneath the sheets, her skin pale but her eyes steady. You came, she whispered. I tried to call, I said, gripping her hand. I know. She smiled faintly. You always try. 3 days later, she handed me an envelope from her bedside drawer, thick, sealed, trembling in her frail hands. Inside, keys, papers. The cottage. It's yours now. Grandma, please don't talk like that. I built that home to protect what matters, she said softly. Now it's your turn. That night, she passed away while I held her hand. At the reading of her will, my parents and Jason sat across from me, faces tight, eyes cold. The lawyer's voice was calm. To my granddaughter, Maya Thompson, I leave my cottage and savings. The silence that followed was like thunder in the room. My father's jaw locked. Unacceptable. That house should be ours. The wishes are legally binding, the lawyer said. My mother snapped. She manipulated her. My own daughter. I met her gaze. You never visited her. Jason leaned forward, bitterness dripping from his tone. You don't deserve it. I stood slowly, slid the keys into my pocket and said, Grandma thought I did. Then I left. By sunset, I was standing before the cottage, peeling paint. Overgrown garden, windows fogged with dust. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I unlocked the door and whispered to the empty air, I finally have a home. The place needed everything, paint, plumbing, insulation. But I didn't care. I painted the walls cream, planted Grandma's favorite flowers, and turned the spare bedroom into a workspace. David let me work remotely, and at night I freelanced for small businesses that couldn't afford big agencies. I slept little, but every morning smelled like coffee and freedom. A year later, I registered my own studio, Horizon Creative. The name came from Grandma's favorite saying, keep your eyes on the horizon, not the storm. Clients came through word of mouth, a bakery, a lakeside hotel, a bookstore. I didn't advertise. I didn't need to. My work spoke for itself. Then Ryan Anderson walked in one Wednesday afternoon. He owned the bookstore downtown. "I need a rebrand," he said with a half smile. His voice was calm, his handshake steady, the kind of man who looked you in the eye and meant it. I designed his logo, redid his website, and somehow, we just kept talking. Dinner meetings became real dinners. Work calls turned into lazy Sunday mornings spent reading in the garden. I wasn't looking for love, but it found me anyway. By 32, Horizon Creative had 3 employees and a steady stream of clients. I worked from a renovated garage while Ryan tended the garden. At night, we ate under the oak tree Grandma had planted decades ago. My life wasn't flashy, but it was whole. Then, one Thursday, my phone buzzed, a number I hadn't seen in 5 years. "Hey, Maya," Jason's text read. "Heard your business is doing great. Would love to reconnect. That word cut like glass. "Still," I answered. "Jason." "Hey, little sis," he said, too cheerful. "We've been thinking about you. Mom, Dad, and I. Maybe we could visit? Just for the weekend." I hesitated, heart uneasy. "Fine," I said. Saturday. Just a visit. Saturday arrived wrapped in quiet dread. Their car crunched down my gravel driveway like it owned the road. Dad stepped out first, smiling too wide. Mom carried store-bought pastries. Jason wore sunglasses even though it was cloudy. They toured the house like buyers at an open house. "You've done well," Mom said, tone sugary but sharp. "For someone with no husband or children." "Thank you," I said flatly. Lunch was tense. Forks clinked. Dad finally cleared his throat. "This house is too big for one person. Don't you think it's wasteful?" I froze. "What are you suggesting?" He leaned back as if it were logical. "We could move in. Your mother and I would take the master. Jason could use the office for his business." I laughed. Short, sharp. "You can't be serious," Jason smirked. "We're family, Maya. You owe us some space." "Owe you?" My voice cracked, then hardened. "Like I owed you when I begged for help and you left me in the rain?" Dad's face went stone cold. "That was different." "No," I said. It wasn't. I stood, shaking but steady. "Get out!" Mom's voice softened into false pity. "You're being emotional. We just want to help. Get out." They left stiff and silent. But something in Dad's eyes told me it wasn't over. I didn't know then that the next time I saw them, they'd be breaking into my home. 3 weeks later, Ryan and I were in Chicago for a design conference. It was the first time I'd felt completely at peace in years. City lights outside the hotel window, Ryan's laughter filling the room. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Margaret, Grandma's old neighbor, Maya. "There are people at your house." I saw them carrying boxes inside. My chest went cold. I opened the Ring app. The feed loaded, and there was my father at the back door, a tool in hand, prying at the lock. My mother behind him. Jason hauling suitcases. They moved in like they owned the place. I called Jason. "What are you doing?" "We're moving in," he said casually. "This is a family home. You're alone, no husband, no children. You don't need all that space. You broke in. We have every right. Try to stop us and we'll contest Grandma's will." My voice didn't shake. "Try me." Ryan and I drove 4 hours straight back. When we turned into the driveway, the sight hit me like a punch. My house, my home, glowing from within, curtains drawn, their cars parked outside. Inside, it looked like strangers lived there. My photos gone, my clothes shoved into boxes. My mother's perfume lingered in the hall. My father stood in the entryway, calm as a statue. "You weren't supposed to be back yet," he said, folding his arms. "It's done, is it?" I asked quietly. He straightened. "We're taking this house. You can't stop us." I smiled once, the kind of smile that hides years of exhaustion. "Watch me." I reached for my phone and dialed 911. The dispatcher answered, "What's your emergency?" "My family broke into my house," I said, my voice steady. "I have video proof." Within 20 minutes, red and blue lights washed across the driveway. 2 police cars pulled up, tires splashing rainwater. My father greeted the officers at the door, feigning confusion. "This is a misunderstanding," he said. "We're her family." I stepped forward, holding my phone. Family doesn't use a crowbar. I opened the Ring app and hit play. The footage spoke louder than I ever could. My father forcing the lock, Jason carrying boxes, my mother following behind. The sound of the latch breaking echoed through the living room. The officers' faces hardened. One turned to my parents. "You have 30 minutes to pack your things. If you're not gone by then, you'll be arrested for breaking and entering." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "We have nowhere to go." "That's not my problem," I said softly. For once, my voice didn't tremble. They scrambled, shouting, packing, blaming each other. Jason muttered curses under his breath. My father tried one last time. "We built this family, Maya." I stood by the door, arms crossed. "And you tore it down." When the last box hit the porch, the officer handed me a report number. "You did the right thing, ma'am." The door closed behind them with a quiet click. The house was mine again. Scuffed floors, crooked frames, rain streaking down the window. It had never looked so beautiful. Days later, the police confirmed the charges: breaking and entering, trespassing. My father and Jason both pled guilty. Suspended sentences, probation, a restraining order kept them 500 feet away. Justice didn't roar. It whispered, but in that silence I finally heard peace. Months passed. The garden bloomed again, wild, bright, untamed, just like Grandma would have wanted. I built a small swing under the oak tree she'd planted decades ago. Ryan cooked dinner inside, laughter echoing through the kitchen windows. For the first time, the rain outside didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like home. One evening, as I watched the sun dip behind the horizon, my phone rang. "An unknown number?" "Maya," my mother's voice trembled on the other end. "I heard you got married, and that you're expecting. I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you." For a long moment, I said nothing. The air around me was still, golden. Then softly I answered. When the call ended, I looked up at the fading light. The same rain that once drowned me was now feeding everything I'd grown. And in that moment, I realized, peace doesn't always come from forgiveness. Sometimes, it comes from finally shutting the door.